I came home from a business trip and found my wedding dress missing. An hour later, I learned my husband had just married my best friend, and my dress. That was the day I died, and the day I was reborn. They thought they broke me. Instead, I made them regret everything. The room was silent, save for the erratic beating of Evelyn's heart. The life she had so carefully built with her husband, Asher, was crumbling before her eyes. She stared at him, unable to grasp the reality of the words he had just uttered. "I've been sleeping with your best friend," Asher had said, his tone casual, as if he were talking about the weather. Evelyn felt the ground shift beneath her feet. The weight of his confession hit her like a wave, drowning out everything else. 5 years of marriage, of shared dreams and intimate moments, all shattered in an instant. Her best friend, Natalie, the one person she had trusted with her deepest secrets, had betrayed her in the worst possible way. The person she had thought would always be there for her had stabbed her in the back. The shock was numbing, leaving her unable to speak at first. She could feel the tears threatening to fall, but she held them back. She wouldn't let him see her break. Not now. Not when she was so close to losing everything she had ever believed in. Asher continued, his voice cold and indifferent. "I want a divorce. It's over, Evelyn." His words stung more than anything he had said before. The anger built up inside her, a surge of fury she could no longer suppress. She stood up, her legs shaking, her fists clenched at her sides. "How could you do this?" she demanded, her voice shaking with barely contained rage. "We had a life together. We had plans." Asher's face twisted with contempt. He shrugged, his indifference cutting her deeper than she could have imagined. "You've been so focused on your career, Evelyn, that you've forgotten what it means to be a wife. I needed more than a roommate who occasionally shares my bed." His words, harsh and biting, dug into her heart, but Evelyn refused to let him see the depth of the pain she felt. This wasn't just a betrayal of their marriage, it was a betrayal of everything they had built together. "And Natalie?" she asked, the name tasting bitter on her tongue. "How long has this been going on behind my back?" A flicker of shame passed across Asher's face, but he quickly masked it with a cold stare. "A year," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "It started as a friendship, but it grew into something more, something real." "Real?" Evelyn couldn't help but laugh, a bitter, empty sound. "Real?" she echoed. "You call this real? Sneaking around, lying to your wife, and breaking your vows? What about our marriage, Asher? Was that not real enough for you?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I didn't plan for this to happen, Evelyn. But Natalie, she understands me in a way you never could. She supports my dreams. She doesn't make me feel guilty for wanting more out of life." The sting of his words cut deep, but Evelyn steeled herself. She would not crumble. Not now. Not when she had come so far. She had to make a choice to fight for what was hers, for the life she had been promised. And she would do whatever it took to get it back. "I won't let you walk away from our marriage without a fight," she said, her voice low and determined. Asher paused, his hand on the doorknob, before turning back to face her. "Do what you need to do, Evelyn. But it won't change the fact that I've made my choice." With that, he left, the door clicking shut behind him. Evelyn stood in the middle of their once shared home, the walls echoing with the emptiness of his departure. The tears she had been holding back finally broke free, but even as they fell, a new fire lit within her. She would not let this betrayal define her. She would find the truth, and she would make Asher and Natalie regret the day they chose to deceive her. But this was just the beginning. The journey ahead would not be easy, but Evelyn knew one thing for sure: she would not back down. She would fight. And she would win. Evelyn's heart raced as she stood in the hallway, the weight of the envelope she held in her hands almost unbearable. The last few months had felt like an endless nightmare, each day blurring into the next, each new revelation a jagged shard of reality slicing through her fragile world. She had suspected the truth for weeks, but nothing could have prepared her for the rawness of what was about to unfold. The confrontation she had been dreading was now inevitable. The door creaked open, and there stood Asher, his face unreadable. He had been the love of her life, the man she thought would stand by her through thick and thin. And yet, here he was, the source of her pain, the one who had torn their world apart with the secret he had been hiding. The betrayal was no longer a vague feeling, it was undeniable, tangible, and it burned like fire in her chest. Why? Evelyn's voice cracked as she spoke, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched the envelope tighter. Why, Asher? How long were you planning to keep this from me? Asher's eyes darted to the floor, the shame in his face a fleeting shadow before he looked up, meeting her gaze with a coldness that made her stomach turn. It started months ago, Evelyn, he said flatly, his words devoid of any remorse. I didn't want it to happen, but it did. It was never supposed to go this far, but it did. A year. That's how long it had been going on. A year of lies, of whispered promises between him and Natalie, her best friend, the woman she had trusted more than anyone. Evelyn's mind reeled, but she fought to stay focused. You think that's enough of an explanation? She shot back, her voice rising with the intensity of the anger building within her. You think a year of deceit can just be swept under the rug like it's nothing? Asher didn't respond immediately. Instead, he took a step toward her, his voice lowering, his tone almost soothing, as though trying to placate her. Evelyn, please understand, this isn't just about you or me. I'm sorry it had to happen like this, but... But what? Evelyn interrupted, unable to hold back the torrent of emotion any longer. But what, Asher? Was this all my fault? Was I too busy for you? Too focused on my career? She let out a bitter laugh, her chest tight with the effort it took to hold back the tears. You had to go to my best friend because I wasn't there for you? The guilt in his eyes was unmistakable, but it wasn't enough. It never would be. She had given him everything, her love, her trust, her loyalty. And he had thrown it all away for a fleeting affair, a lie that would haunt her for the rest of her life. The finality of it all slammed into her like a freight train. She wasn't just dealing with a cheating husband, she was facing the destruction of everything she thought she knew about love, about marriage, about trust. And then, as if the universe hadn't given her enough to bear, Asher dropped the bombshell, Natalie's pregnant. We're going to have a family. The words reverberated through her, each syllable a cruel reminder of how completely she had been replaced. Natalie. The woman she had once called a friend. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat as a wave of nausea washed over her. Pregnant. He had gotten her pregnant while they were still married. While they were still supposed to be building a future together. Asher's indifferent shrug only made the betrayal worse. It happened, Evelyn, he said, as though offering a lame excuse for the catastrophic destruction of everything they had built. Natalie and I are starting a new life together. I'm not going to pretend anymore. I'm done with the lies. Evelyn's body went cold. The years of shared history, of planning a future together, suddenly seemed like a sick joke. She had been the fool, so wrapped up in her career, in her ambitions, that she had failed to see the cracks in their marriage. And now, those cracks were yawning open, swallowing everything in their path. You're done, Asher? She repeated, her voice low, almost dangerous. You're not the only one who's done here. Her hand shook as she opened the envelope, revealing the evidence, photos, financial records, the proof of his betrayal. The reality of it all hit her like a ton of bricks. How long has this been going on? Evelyn's voice was steady now, ice cold as she met his gaze. He looked away, his expression guarded, but the truth was already out. I'm sorry, Evelyn, but I can't live a lie anymore. I'm going to marry Natalie. I want a divorce. She stood frozen, the weight of his words pressing down on her. And what about our future? What about the plans we made? She asked, her voice trembling despite her best efforts to remain composed. Asher's eyes softened for a moment, but his voice remained firm. You were never there, Evelyn. You were too focused on your career. Natalie was the one who was there for me when I needed someone. Evelyn's heart shattered, but she refused to let him see it. "You've crossed a line, Asher," she whispered, her voice thick with the sting of betrayal. "You've destroyed everything we had. And now, you'll pay for it." As Asher turned to leave, Evelyn couldn't let him walk away without a final declaration. "This isn't over, Asher. You and Natalie will pay for this." She meant it. Every word. As the door clicked shut behind him, the silence that followed felt suffocating. Her world, once stable and secure, now lay in ruins at her feet. But Evelyn wasn't going to let herself be consumed by this betrayal. She had a plan. She would uncover the truth, piece by piece, and she would make Asher and Natalie regret the day they chose to deceive her. She wasn't finished yet. Not by a long shot. The investigation into Asher's betrayal had begun to take on a life of its own. Evelyn's decision to hire a private investigator was one she'd never imagined having to make, but now, sitting in the dimly lit office across from a man whose job it was to uncover secrets, she could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on her. It was no longer just about her broken marriage, it was about uncovering the truth and finding the strength to face it. The investigator, a sharp-eyed man named Derek, was the epitome of professionalism. He sat with an air of calm detachment as he carefully slid a manila envelope across the table toward her. Evelyn's hands trembled as she opened it, her heart pounding in her chest. The photos and financial documents she saw within sent a chill through her spine. Asher, her husband, had been transferring large sums of money to Natalie, her so-called best friend, for months. Money that should have been part of their shared life, now funneled into a secretive existence behind her back. The betrayal was not just emotional, it was financial, too. As she flipped through the documents, each page felt like a punch in the gut, exposing the cracks that had formed in her life without her even noticing. There were receipts for art supplies, rent payments, and extravagant dinners, things Asher had never shared with her. As her mind raced, the investigator leaned back in his chair, his voice filled with pity. "From what I can gather," Derek began, his tone measured, "the payment started about 6 months ago, right around the time your husband started working later and later. His behavior had likely shifted, though you might not have seen the full picture until now." Evelyn nodded, barely able to hold herself together. As the pieces of the puzzle clicked into place, she realized just how much she had been blind to. The late nights, the coldness, the sudden distance between them, all signs she had brushed aside, believing they were just temporary issues. Now, it all made sense. The guilt gnawed at her. How could she have missed all the signs? Taking a deep breath, Evelyn met Derek's eyes and spoke, her voice low but firm. "How long has this been going on? How much of my life has been a lie?" Derek's face softened with understanding. "It's hard to say how long he's been hiding things, but the financial activity, it's been going on for nearly half a year." Her mind reeled. 6 months. 6 months of deceit. 6 months where her trust had been shattered, and she hadn't even known it. She stood up suddenly, a flash of rage burning in her chest. "Thank you," she said, sliding the envelope back toward him, her hand still shaking. "I appreciate your help." As Derek nodded and stood to leave, Evelyn felt a flicker of hope, a glimpse of strength that had been buried beneath her grief. She wasn't just going to sit back and let this destroy her. She was going to take control. The confrontation was inevitable. She had to face Asher and Natalie, both of them. But not before she had all the evidence in front of her. She needed to see it all laid out before she made her move. The plan was simple. Confront them with the truth, with undeniable evidence, and watch their world crumble. The moment arrived sooner than she expected. Evelyn tracked Natalie down at her studio, the same place where they had shared countless memories, where they had once laughed and talked about dreams. The stark contrast between those memories and the cold reality of the present made Evelyn's stomach churn. As she entered the studio, Natalie looked up in surprise, her eyes widening with fear. Evelyn held the envelope firmly in her hands, her eyes narrowing with determination. "I know about the money," Evelyn said, her voice cold, unforgiving. "I know Asher's been paying for your life while he was still married to me." Natalie's face drained of color. She fumbled nervously, twisting her hands together. Evelyn, I can't explain, it's not what you think. Evelyn let out a bitter laugh, her anger rising. Really? Because it looks like my husband has been having an affair with my best friend, all while lying to my face. And you're telling me it's not what I think? Tears welled up in Natalie's eyes as she stammered, he promised me, Evelyn. He said he was going to leave you. He said he loved me. Evelyn scoffed, feeling her fury intensify. You really believed him? You thought he'd leave me for you? For someone who can't even take care of herself? You're nothing more than a pawn in his game. Natalie flinched at her words, her shoulders sagging in defeat. I never meant to hurt you, Evelyn. I just wanted to feel wanted. He made me feel special. Evelyn's heart hardened as she gazed at Natalie, her voice cutting through the air. He didn't need you. He needed someone to feed his ego, someone to distract him from the life he didn't want. And now, look at you. You've destroyed everything, our friendship, your own dignity, all for a man who never truly cared for you. The guilt in Natalie's eyes deepened, but Evelyn felt no sympathy. You think you've won, Natalie? You think he's going to leave me for you? He never intended to. You're just another conquest for him. And once he's tired of you, he'll discard you just like he did with me. As Evelyn spoke, she realized just how far she'd come. From the woman who had been betrayed and heartbroken, she had become someone with a clear purpose. The plan was in motion, and there was no turning back now. With the cold satisfaction of having exposed the truth to Natalie, Evelyn left the studio, the weight of the evidence in her hands. It wasn't just the money, it was the lies, the manipulation, the broken trust. As she walked back to her car, her thoughts raced. She had what she needed now, cold, hard facts. But it wasn't just about confronting Asher and Natalie. It was about taking control of her life again. Asher would pay. She would make sure of it. Evelyn's heart raced as she walked into the sleek, cold office where she would face the man who had torn her life apart. Asher, her husband, sat at the far end of the room, his posture defensive but his eyes unable to fully mask the uncertainty and guilt that had been building ever since his betrayal was exposed. The space between them felt like an expanse, miles wide with the weight of all the lies and deceit that had stacked up between them. As Evelyn stood in front of him, her mind flashed back to that painful moment when he'd confessed everything. The betrayal still stung, but now, as she stood there with the truth in her hands, she was ready. No longer would she be the woman crushed under the weight of his actions. No longer would she beg for answers. She had them all, every detail of his affair, every lie he had told, and every dollar he had stolen. Asher shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his fingers tapping nervously against the table. Evelyn's eyes narrowed as she stepped forward, placing the manila envelope on the table in front of him. Her hand hovered over the documents as she spoke, her voice steady but full of the fury she had held back for so long. You thought I would never find out, didn't you? You thought I'd live in the dark, never seeing the truth behind your lies. Her words hit like a slap. But I know everything now, Asher. I know about the money, about you and Natalie, how you've been funding her life, her lavish lifestyle, while I was at home, thinking we were building a future. Asher's face paled, but he quickly regained his composure. Evelyn, listen to me, he began, his voice tinged with the usual arrogance that had always annoyed her. I didn't want this to happen. It just did. I needed something more, and she was there for me in ways you couldn't be. Evelyn's eyes burned with a mix of pain and rage. She had heard these excuses before, and now, they felt hollow. Something more? You betrayed me with my best friend. You betrayed our vows. And for what? A woman who was willing to sleep with her best friend's husband. Tell me, Asher, what kind of future do you think you're going to build on that? He flinched as her words landed, but Evelyn wasn't done. Her anger boiled over, but it was controlled now, focused. She had all the power, and she was going to make sure he felt every ounce of it. You don't get to stand here and act like this is just some misunderstanding, she continued, her voice rising. You don't get to play the victim in this. You're a liar, Asher. You've been lying to me for months, and now you want to throw it all away because you think you deserve something better? You'll never get anything better than what we had. You just threw it away for a moment of weakness. And for what? To prove you're not a failure? To prove you can still get what you want? Well, guess what? You failed. He stood abruptly, knocking over his chair as he advanced toward her. I'm done, Evelyn. I've made my choice. Natalie and I are going to have a family. We're going to start a new life together, one you're not a part of. Evelyn's heart twisted, but she held firm. She wouldn't let him see how much his words still hurt. Instead, she folded her arms across her chest and looked at him with a cold, unfeeling gaze. You think starting over with her is going to be the answer? You think you're going to find happiness with a woman who helped destroy your marriage? What you have, Asher, is nothing. You have nothing. His face contorted with a mix of fury and desperation. You don't understand, Evelyn. You never did. I needed more. I wanted more, and she gave it to me. She wasn't like you. She didn't judge me. She didn't hold me back. Evelyn shook her head, disgust rising in her throat. You needed a mistress. Someone to tell you what you wanted to hear. Someone to make you feel like a man. But you've never once stopped to think about what this would do to me. To our future. You never once thought about the vows you made or the promises you broke. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she blinked them away, not allowing him the satisfaction of seeing her break. You're not going to get away with this, Asher. Not with me.